This podcast may contain adult themes and strong language.
You stepped onto Busker's Corner.
My name is Sahar Mitchell. My stage name that I used for almost 20 years was the Mother Fakir, and that's Fakir, as in a Hindu magician. It's a name that when I was interviewed for, I think it was like the local NBC affiliate in Phoenix, there was just sort of this dead air, and they're like, so Mrs. Strange, because I was part of the Strange Family Circus. They didn't even make any suggestion towards the fact that they wanted to acknowledge my name. So yeah, but the Mother Fakir, that was my stage name when I was performing.
Hello, welcome to Busker's Corner Podcast, Halloween Spectacular, Volume 2. I'm your host, Robert, and with me is my wife, co-host, and producer, Fable. Together, we've traveled the West, busking for more than 7 years, and met so many wonderful artists and performers, and we feel compelled to tell their stories.
Hey there, this is Fable, your co-hostess on this All Hallows Eve. Beware the witching hour as we bring you 3 stories full of hocus, pocus, tricks, treats, and of course a good amount of street performance. So sit back, eat, drink, and be scary as something wicked this way comes on this Busker's Corner Podcast, Halloween Spectacular, Volume 2.
Let's kick off this Halloween Spectacular with a spooky story from a spooky busker. She's perfected many sideshow acts and even affected Coney Island sideshow history. She has performed her magic both busking and in many venues. You might have picked up on the connection to Captain Stephen Strange from episode 1, as they both performed and created Strange Family Circus. Please welcome Sahar Mitchell, or you may call her Mother Fakir, in a story called Big Apple Waterfall.
Well, I really started out as a dancer, and I consider myself fundamentally a dancer. However, when I became part of the Strange Family Circus, I started picking up circus acts. So circus sideshow, really. I should qualify that. Circus sideshow. So I learned how to eat fire and walk on glass and swallow and regurgitate razor blades. I can walk up a ladder of swords. I can juggle. Some of the typical like hippie flow fire arts, like spinning a staff, spinning poi. I do an act called the Human Blockhead, and that is an act that was made famous by a man named Melvin Burkhart. And Melvin Burkhart was known for doing the working acts in the sideshow. So the sideshow, it's a combination of human anomalies and then feats of strength or people who just do odd things with their body. You needed to have the working acts just in case you didn't have enough human anomalies to fill out what they used to call a freak show, which now they call a sideshow. And so Melvin Burkhart made famous several of the working acts that are typically in a show. And I learned how to do the Human Blockhead, which is where you nail a nail up your nose. And in doing so, when I worked out in Coney Island, I discovered, because the director of the show told me, that I became the first African-American woman to have a speaking role in the American Sideshow by doing that. So that was a little bit of history that I was able to make back in 2003. blockhead and when I work with snakes are the two acts that I've done that really people have like this primal reaction, like they just really don't like it, and they'll leave a show. Like if we're doing a street show, people will walk away. People will leave the venue. I've seen those two acts, and even with the snakes, I don't do anything necessarily lewd with the snakes, but people just have such a fear of snakes that they'll just full on just get up and leave. I would be so surprised about how I would just be walking around with a snake and how quickly people would just start screaming and people would just immediately run the other direction. Yeah, the snakes in particular, in addition to, people not wanting to see spikes up in my sinuses, were really the two acts that I would say got the most negative reaction. Mostly in Phoenix, Arizona, done street performing. Did a little bit in New York, not a whole lot. And I think some of that was just because there was just a lot of competition. And so there was just such amazing buskers. But I do remember there was one time when we were busking in Union Square, and I think it was one of those times when it was just packed with people. Union Square in New York, it's on 14th Street. It's right near Greenwich Village. It's near the East Village. It's a huge park, and so there's a subway station there. And it's just perfect. It's just perfect for street performing. There's just lots of little areas within the park and near the subway where that's just conducive for people busking. And I wouldn't say it was competitive in that, we felt like the performers were rude to each other, but it was definitely competitive and, people just wanted the best spot. I thought it was a very supportive community, honestly. But if you got there too late, you didn't get a good spot, and then you were just sort of relegated to what was left over. So one time we found a spot and we were like, oh, well, this works. It's right near where the subway entrance is. We're really close to where the traffic is. We're like, this is a perfect spot. Like, why hasn't anybody else claimed this spot? And so we're doing our show and we're performing and we're doing fairly well. I was juggling and Steven was doing his glass act. And what happened was, because I was just so concentrated on throwing and catching these balls, it was really the sound and sort of the shadow out of the corner of my eye where it all of a sudden there was just these things descending and I couldn't quite understand what was happening. Especially because the sun was going down, and because, when the sun goes down, you have these really long shadows. I think I was really more worried once I sort of had the realization of what was happening. I was able to catch the balls that I was juggling and turned around and realized that Steve was standing in glass and that he was barefoot. My first moment was to get Steve out of the glass and figure out how to get all of our tools cleaned up. One of the acts that I do is I swallow and regurgitate razor blades, and this is an act that Houdini used to do. He typically did it with sewing needles, but sewing needles are kind of hard to see from far away. So I started using razor blades, and one thing that I use to show that the razor blades are sharp is I'll take an apple and I'll start cutting up the apple with the razor blades. The sun starts going down, and it's not necessarily the issue of the sun going down like you might think because of light or because, people are too busy because they're just commuting, back and forth home and they just don't, want anything to do with you. And those things were an issue. What the main issue was is we realized where we were. There was the park was elevated, and so there was a big wall behind us, and all of a sudden from that wall there was this deluge of rats. That just descended all next to us. And it was so funny because I just needed to stop, and I did right in the middle of the show, and I was just like, we need to leave, and they just kept coming, and it was like this waterfall of rats. Not only, am I worried about Steve standing in this class and he's barefoot and there's all these rats, but then there's all these like apple chunks everywhere that I'm worried that these rats that are descending upon us are just gonna just start scurrying to all these pieces of apple that I dropped in front of me, and then, thus be swallowed by some swarm of rats because of my negligence to choose a prop that was edible. I don't know, maybe they smelled the apple. Maybe that was part of the problem. But yeah, I would say that it just felt like there was just a lot in that moment that we just did wrong. And my favorite part was there was just some punk rock guy that seriously just looked, like the spike collar and like the battle jacket and, the rolled up jeans and the combat boots. And he just looked like out of 1982. And he just looks at us and he looks up and he's like, yeah, rats. And he just keeps walking. Like, yeah, it's New York, rats. Of course. Why wouldn't there be?
Thank you, motherfucker, for sharing your story about spikes up your nose, wrangling snakes, and a waterfall of rats. That's just the kind of story we love to hear on Busker's Corner podcast. Our next tale to be told is a very serious tale and is meant as a word of warning to any young buskers thinking of taking up the trade. Told by a true old school, even iconic busker, his resume is a mile long. He is an expert entertainer, comedian, and dazzling swordsman, and Western cowboy gun performance specialist. Here he is with a harrowing tale of a fellow legendary busker, chilling enough for any Halloween spectacular. Please welcome Johnny Hotshot Mincks with a story called The Compromise.
My name is Jonathan Mincks, Johnny Hotshot. We were talking about like working as a busker. If you're working, if you're really trying to make money, I'm not talking to the artists out there. I just want to talk to buskers that are getting into it, starting out, and you got something and you think it's worth something, and so you're doing this as what you want to do. If you're starting out busking, there's some things you should know. And the stories go on and on of people that have hurt themselves busking, and I'm not really talking about musicians. Musicians, I guess you can have bloody fingers and everything, but you're probably not going to get hurt. If you're busking and you're doing a show and you're trying something dangerous, you're taking risks, and you're doing it in a less than ideal venue. So you got to realize those risks, really. You'll be called on to do things in other venues. Now, I'm going to give you a story of a really, really great guy who was one of the best fire breathers I had ever seen, even much less meet and party with. His name was Bill Wilgus. He was incredible. He did the Renaissance circuit. He did a lot of things, okay? He worked with fire, and he was amazing. I mean, the shit he did with fire was incredible. And he got a corporate gig. And we take corporate gigs because they're really good money a lot of the time, okay? So you can make, a week's worth of busking in one night or more, depending. The corporate gigs, definitely, I would say if you have a show that you think would work, that is a great venue to go into. It takes work to build up. You got to get, a reputation and everything, just like anything else, but you want to work with the entertainment companies in your town where you are, and they need to get to know you, and you need to be, reliable. and you need to be good for a corporate crowd because these people are paying good money, and that means you can't, make big mistakes. So you better be good at what you're doing. Big mistakes like someone gets hurt doing what you're doing, or it's offensive in an unexpected way. So Bill Wilgus got this gig, a corporate gig, and the guy knew his shit with fire. Okay? He was safe. He had been doing it a very long time, and he was amazing. And he got this corporate gig, and they said, here's your outfit. And they gave him a costume. And he knew that it was the wrong choice. But they talked him into it. He set aside a rule. If you are working with fire, you cannot wear flammable material. Anybody working with fire knows this. Let me rephrase that. Anybody who is safe with fire knows this. But he let him do it. And he got into the monkey suit and he did the show. He lit himself on fire. And I saw him about 5 days later in the hospital, and he knew it. I could see it in his eyes as we talked. He was not going to make it, and he didn't. He died from his burns. So that's the way this ends. If you're working with guns, if you're working with fire, if you're doing stunts, if you are not doing it that way, the way it's supposed to be done every single time, and you compromise safety for applause or for a buck, you will die.
Thank you, Johnny Hotshot Mincks, for such a heartfelt and important story. We dedicate this season to the spirit of Bill Wilgus and all the other street performers with a tragic ending. Our next story is busking adjacent, meaning it's not about busking itself, but it is a true Halloween story that this poet performs live. You may remember him from Season 2, Episode 1 of Busker's Corner podcast. Please welcome back poet, writer, and performer Brian Flatgard with a story we call Mary Jane's Grave.
Beware, my friends, as you pass by, for as you are, so once was I. As I am now, you soon shall be. Prepare, therefore, to follow me. I grew up in southwest Minnesota, in this little town called Windham. So I was in high school from 82 to 86. Starting when I got my driver's license, a couple friends of mine, few in particular, we just started methodically exploring places. We would just drive every dirt road, and then what we started doing was like finding weird little graveyards. And there's a ton of them out there, like these old eerie places. That grew into collecting ghost stories. Then that grew into we would take people out and scare them. So that was kind of like the peak of what we do for these elaborate, bored as hell teenagers in Minnesota. Just had nothing to do. I was asking everybody I knew about their spooky stories. And so all these things started to line up. I would hear a story about witches, and like a witch's graveyard, another graveyard that was in a hill surrounded by a marsh. There was supposedly this haunted tombstone that if you messed with it, you'd die. So we kept hearing all these different things. One point, trustworthy adults are starting to confirm things. Our English teacher, Mr. Wolf, completely no-nonsense kind of guy. He overheard us talking about witches, and he just walks up and he's like, Jackson County has the highest number of witches per capita in the nation, which is the county right below us. What? How is that a thing? And then we had this new volleyball teacher, because she heard us talking about haunted stuff. She's like, one time I was at a volleyball camp in Lake Okoboji, and these guys said, hey, come up, there's this haunted graveyard. And we went out there and we started walking, and before we even got there, in the swamp was this woman wearing all white and holding an old-timey lantern and just gliding. These guys were petrified. Also, this is Motley Crue time, and shout at the devil. It was so much fun. Devil worshiping for fun. I could go on and on and on and on and on about all these stories about these like witches and graveyards and blah, blah, blah. Finally, at some point, you're talking about that place. The place with the haunted headstone. Like, what? Yeah. And I'm like, well, I've heard it's like 3 Lakes, 3 Parks. Yeah. It's like the one in the middle. They're all at the same place. This is all one place. All the stories we've been hearing, one freaking place. We go out there, drive in, and it's just like a normal park, just a normal Minnesota park, whatever. There's like a little kind of a side road, and we look, and we can see this kind of like rise up out of this like murkiness. So there's a little path, it's all run down. You get up, there's like an old rundown fence, and we get in there, and in all this overgrown weeds are all these graves. And here's this kind of obelisk headstone, and it's broken in half, but it's been placed up again. This is it. This is the tombstone we've been hearing about. It's called Mary Jane's grave. And it's got Mary Jane whoever from the 1800s. And it's all like faded and stuff, but we read what's on there, and it says, beware my friends as you pass by, for as you are, so once was I. As I am now, you soon shall be. Prepare therefore to follow me. We're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? It's all real. Like, I have goosebumps. Like, I'm still freaked out by this place. We're like, this is super dangerous place. Shouldn't be messing with it. So, let's bring carloads of teenagers there on Halloween night. And we organize this fucking epic, we're gonna do some spooky shit at a secret location. And if you're in, you're in. But we're going all the way. There's true evil here, so we can really, really scare people. We're really gonna take it to the limit. Halloween night rolls up, and we've got this exclusive club of kids, and there's 3 cars, and I think there's like 6 to 8 people in each car. We are loaded. We are ready to do this. We get there, and there's nobody there. We have the park to ourselves. Also, we've kept this very mysterious. We found the haunted headstone. That's all people really know. So we go in, pitch black, it's swampy, it's weird, and there's a lot of bravado going on. We single file in on this little path, and we deliberately take them all the way around and wind them around. So everybody's completely backwards. And it seems a lot longer and a lot spookier. I'm scared as hell. I'm fucking petrified. Because I'm just like, I know weird shit has happened out here. And then we're like telling them the reason this graveyard was here It was because all the witches in Jackson County. And that, the people put the witches in this spot to contain them. So this is the witch's graveyard. It is, specifically evil. It's surrounded by swamp, so nothing get out. Like, we're just making up mythology like mad about this place. And then we get them to the Mary Jane's grave. There we are. We're all gathered around it. And then we have somebody read that, beware my friends as you pass by. So like, we're not reading it. Somebody else is like, the horror of discovery is in their voice as they do it. So everybody's just like, what the fuck? So now we're just standing there, all petrified. We knew that at some point we were gonna do the kill the lights and scream thing to make everybody run. So we're kind of like warming up. We're getting ready to do that. We're waiting for the right moment. But before we can, I'm not gonna say his full name, this kid named Mike unzips his pants, pulls out, and pisses on this grave. Pisses on the tombstone that is haunted, that already has a history of killing disrespectful teenagers. He's peeing, and I'm in a panic. Everybody's in a panic. We are bringing hell upon ourselves right now. What? I'm like, oh my God, like we've activated the curse. It's on. So that's the moment when we kill the lights and start screaming. He's still peeing, and the lights go out, and we take off. We know the way out. Nobody knows where they are. So in all directions, people run, and they either hit water or a barbed wire fence. So now people are getting tangled up. And there's howls of pain in the night. I'm just like, and it's insanity. So everybody's just going crazy. We go back to the path, whatever, kind of shine some lights so people can make their way back. Everybody gets back to the cars, and everybody's kind of like a little bit of shock. Everybody's like laughing. Everybody's nervous. Everybody's high energy, whatever. Plus, we've all been drinking. All right, we got to go. And who's going to get in the death car with Mike? All the dudes who think they've got big balls are like, okay, we're gonna get in our friend Doug's car. So they get in there, and by now we're kind of like, okay, we're away from it. We're all good, whatever. So we all start driving back, and we're going down the road. We've got, maybe 40 miles to go. All have open containers, I'm sure. There's 3 of us. Can't remember who's driving the lead car. Then it's Doug's car. Then I'm the last one. So we're going along. We're all goofing around. We've all got our Van Halen on or whatever on. We start doing the chicken game where you turn your lights off, and then the first one to turn their lights on loses. And like, this is a game we play a lot. We play a lot of dumb car games. So we kind of do it a few times, ha 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 ha. And then we're going, and it goes for like 90 seconds. A long time. Going. And I think I can see the car ahead of me, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if they can. If I don't hear somebody else wreck or hit the shoulder, and we've got a shoulder to play with too, but we're still going like 70. This is insane. And I can feel like we're on the other side of the road. Like I feel kind of we're tilting that way. So I hit my light, and sure enough, our driver's side wheel is on the other white line. Also, what's happening is Mike, the dumb shit, is gonna be funny. So he's like got himself kind of out the window of the back seat of that car to like wave when the lights come on. So we all do that. All of us swerve hard right to get ourselves back in the middle of the road. And Mike swings out of the car. He's going down. One of his hands hits the road. I almost go into the ditch because I'm like, in my head it's all played out. He's gonna fall out, and I'm the death car. Deliverer of justice. Evil will use me to kill this guy, Mike, who's the grave pisser. What happens is, he falls out. They grab his ankles. He's so far out, his shins are all scabbed up because he was hanging. The window was on his shins, his other hand caught that like fin, the curved bottom of the door. So he held that and they dragged him back in, like scuffed him all up. We all pull over. And by then, we are all stone cold sober. Nobody's laughing. Mike is just like, I almost died. Yeah, dude, you almost died. 'Cause you pissed on Mary Jane's grave. All right, we're done. There's no more mess around this Halloween. That ends the night. And then years later, I'm in college. My friend and I have we have a thing with the college radio, which is a joke because it broadcasts in the electrical system of the college. So like there's no antenna, like you just have to be in your dorms to hear it. Like nobody hears this station. It's just an excuse for you to hang out an hour and play your stuff. We meet other people who are doing their radio shows, and these metalheads have an hour on Wednesdays. So I would go in and they would have me do a guest. I would name something and then they would play it and kind of talk about it kind of thing because I was big into metal and stuff. Or while it's playing, we're talking off air and they're like, hey, the new Megadeth is out. I'm like, sweet. And they knew I was into Megadeth because I was anyway, but my second cousin is Dave Ellefson, who is in Megadeth. And I heard him play one of his very first shows in my high school. And so I remember when Megadeth came out, they knew I was a Megadeth fan. They're telling me, they've got this one song, it's like so fucking awesome, it's so spooky. Like they couldn't record it. Every time they tried to record it, it didn't work. And then finally, they just turned off all the lights and lit candles, and they got one take, and they got it. Oh, cool. And then I'm like, let's play that. Like, all right, cool. It's called Mary Jane. What? So the song's playing. This is it. This song is about that. The chorus comes on, and it's beware my friends as you pass by, for as you are, so once was I. As I am now, you soon shall be. Prepare therefore to follow me. Fucking guitars, bang your head. It's fucking awesome. It turns out, obviously, he's a kid from Jackson. He knows this shit better than me. So he wrote this song about it. So that blew me away. Now, jump 20 years up, right? I am in Lakefield in the Jackson County Historical Museum because my family's like, hey, our forefathers' trunk that they packed from Norway, it's the trunk they traveled with across the ship. That trunk is in the Historical Society. We should go check it out. I'm like, cool, let's go do that. We go in, and right next to my trunk, my family trunk, is the Mary Jane headstone. Because it kept getting vandalized and stolen and messed with, they put it in the Historical Society for safekeeping. So it's right there, next to it. And next to that is the gold record from Dave Ellefson that he got for Mary Jane. All together. Everything's safe. Everybody's honoring our ancestors. And that is my Halloween story about Mary Jane's grave in Jackson County and Dave Ellefson and Megadeth.
Thank you, Brian Flatgard, for your story to close out this second episode of Season 2, Halloween Spectacular. We had a story about don't perform under a waterfall of sewer rats, a story about don't compromise safety for applause, and a story about don't go around pissing on haunted gravestones. But please do be on the lookout for episode 3 of this second season of Busker's Corner podcast.
If you've enjoyed Busker's Corner podcast and would like to support this show, please share and tell all your friends about us. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and all our socials, where you can find us at Busker's Corner Podcast. It really means the world to us, so thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this Halloween spectacular. But for now, you're stepping off Busker's Corner.